All right. So I observed you during your fourth grade ELA block. I want to say that I liked how you maintained a positive tone. You were walking around the room the whole time. I mean, you definitely got your steps in. You made sure to acknowledge students who are participating, and even when they got the answer that you weren't necessarily looking for, you still built on it. So they felt willing to engage with you even after the first time. I know that you have relationships with your students because they were laughing and you were laughing, and it was engaging and relevant. It wasn't off topic, and you definitely were having authentic conversations that related to the text, which I found interesting because I teach lower children. So I'm like, if I were to talk about these things on TV, we would never get back on track. So you were able to bring it in and make it relevant to them when you were doing like your vocabulary boxes. Mm-hmm. You were talking about Harry Potter, Dobby, and I'm like, if I would have got off on that tangent, they would have never came back from it. So it was nice for you to see that you're building relationships with them, and it's only been, I guess, 6 weeks in school. Yeah. How do you build relationships with your kids fast?
So the biggest thing with me and relationships is that you have to realize that they're little people. They're not robots. So getting to know them, I do have the opportunity in reading to get to know them because of the things we talk about. So they're more likely to tell me stories and tell me about their life than other areas, sometimes because we do talk about stories. We always start with Because of Winn-Dixie at the beginning of the year, so they love dogs, so they're going to tell you all about their pets. Just having conversations with them, especially about the text, but also taking time to get to know them as people, what they like, if you can joke with them. A lot of them I know because I've had their brothers and sisters, so I have that connection to them, and I've been here for a long time, so I know most of them if they've been here. So
I read down that you've been teaching 16 years this year?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's a long time. I mean, you've been in fourth grade the whole time.
Yes.
And I think that that's amazing that you've been able to see and grow in 16 years, but have a different group every single time.
Yes.
Like, I think I would have gotten tired of it, but I think you love it. You find like comfort in it, and I think you thrive because of it, and your kids do too.
Yeah.
So just some questions as I was observing you. I wanted to know, how do you use Pear Deck? Because that's what I got to see, your part of the lesson. How do you use Pear Deck to increase student understanding and mastery of the lesson?
So Pear Deck, before I did Pear Deck, I did paper study guides, and I feel like they did not like them. So Pear Deck is very interactive. There's slides that are multiple choice. There's slides that are draw on the screen, like you can draw, you can add a text box, you can type. So different ways to reach them, but also I felt like it was more engaging because they like doing it instead of writing all the time. So I switched to that a couple years ago, and I took the study guides and kind of built off of them to make my questions. Also, they're kind of based on higher level thinking questions that they would see on an EOG, but also make them better readers. So Pear Deck, I also on my end can see, if I pull up show responses, I can see what they've answered. Sometimes they'll write their name on them so I can see who has answered. Other times they'll leave them anonymous just because some kids can't spell well and things, so they get uncomfortable about that. But I do go through a lot of times and read what they wrote and say, that was a great answer, and a lot of them will be like, that was mine. So like that way too. There's always going to be a few that are sitting there not doing anything. What I hope is either between the conversation or the typing or the screen or whatever, that they're listening and hearing something, getting something.
And the time frame, I did see you in the morning, which fourth graders, they're tired and they're sleepy, and that engagement I'm sure was hard.
Yes.
But I did know just from us passing conversation that you focus on a story at a time for 2 weeks, and because this is unfamiliar territory, so I have to ask questions to even know what I'm understanding and seeing. And this was the kids' 5th time sort of being exposed to the text. So you were engaging in a whole group lesson, like discussion part. So you had these questions that you had already sort of filtered out through reading the story over and over again, and you were asking them and engaging them in conversation and building off each of them along with the Pear Deck. Do you have different questions for each class that you have? I don't know what level of class that you had, or if you had a mix.
We have mixed. We always do mixed groups because you want them to all hear. Like the higher kids who are good readers are gonna have better conversations most of the time. However, I have found when you mix them, some of the kids who are not great at reading, because we do read it the first time together, and then we sometimes read it again together in pieces, or they read it, they still have access to it, so they will answer and have really good thought processes sometimes that they wouldn't have if I made them read it by themselves all the time. So that, and then the purpose of that time is to engage them in conversation, because I try to put questions on there that are some that they could, some of them will be like, well, this answer could go too. Like trying to get them to think outside the box, so it's not just a one answer question, one answer that makes sense. So we kind of pull, and they build off of each other. And sometimes one class will say something that I tell the next class because it was a really good idea. Like when you saw the vocabulary boxes, for example, when the kid connected Dobby from Harry Potter to the vocabulary word, the purpose is to get them to connect to the word and keep it in their head. So, because I tell them all the time, the more you connect to it, the more you remember it. So, it is more discussion based and talking together and interacting with the text with a teacher, because they're high level thinking questions, instead of making them do it by themselves.
They're making those connections out loud with you, sort of like a read aloud, but in an older group setting. It's almost like you were doing that. Like I talk through what I'm thinking as I'm reading, and you're doing that as you're doing this higher level, level text.
And like the first time we read through it together, that's when I ask like those basic questions to make sure they're paying attention. But that's when they also look, as we're reading the text, they're paying attention to where they find their vocabulary words, because we go back and define those all in context to see if we can find a context to help us figure out what the word means.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to always keep them engaged.
And so is that an area where you feel like you want to grow specifically this year? Is more student engagement? I mean, you have been teaching 16 years, and I know that it's like, well, you know, I found what works, and I want to stick with it, and I think you're excellent at what you do. I mean, obviously. But we do have to grow each year in a different way, and we sort of master different things each year. So I know that you sort of have this reflective mind of like, I want to grow in this area. So what area do you want to grow in?
Well, honestly, what I've focused on more this year, you didn't see as much of it because we were doing Pear Deck, but vocabulary is where I've honestly tried to focus more, because I know a lot of our kids come in with deficits in vocabulary. So I've always done vocabulary boxes to make them have connections with words and think outside the box, literally. But also I've started Wordly Wise, which is supposed to be like the most words that fourth graders will see.
Wordly Wise.
Yes, and that we didn't do that this week because we're doing a story. So I kind of, this is my first year doing that, so I'm trying to figure out how to make it fit. But the more vocabulary I can introduce them to.
And connect them to.
That's the biggest piece that I learned a long time ago. Vocabulary has to be connected to something. It can't just be you teaching them the words.
So the Wordly Wise, is it a separate...
It's like it's a book, and then it has the words already in it, and it has activities. Now, we've done that the first couple weeks of school.
Yeah.
And some of those activities I left in like on a page, or we would do them together, or I created like Google Slides for them to do because I feel like it was more interactive. But it also, I like it because it has words like communicate was one of our words, but then we also talked about communication and communicative. So the different endings and how that changes words.
Okay.
So, because a lot of kids don't get that. Like when we were talking about you in there with plural.
Yeah.
But even in fourth grade, they struggle. Like, why is there an S? And a lot of them put apostrophe S. I'm like, that's not plural. That's possessive. So
that person owns that part.
So I've tried to focus on vocabulary a lot more, and I want to include that more with my students because I feel like that makes them better readers.
I love that.
So that's what I am focusing on this year,
Okay.
which is in my PDP also.
I love that.
So-
So you're doing Wordly Wise and you're doing the vocabulary boxes.
Yes.
Now, for purposes of the story the story you were focusing on, how, if a kid came across, let's say, a word they didn't know, okay, and you still had explained it, for those vocab boxes, do they turn that back into you?
Yes, we go over. So they do them. So this point in the year, I'm still teaching them what to do because they have like antonyms, synonyms. They have who, when, and where, which is a deeper connection to where would you see that connection piece, and then put it in a picture. So a lot of those pieces they'll eventually do together. I mean, by themselves, but most of the time I let them work in groups on that so they can think out loud to each other.
Okay, I like it.
And I've also taught them, like, if you don't know a word, if you don't know what it means, you can look it up on Google. Like, there's a definition there. See if it...
that's what we do.
That's what we do. So that's what I've taught them to do. And also, when we go over it, we go over it. And then that way, if they have any questions, we can kind of talk about it. So, and the who, what, when, and where is where it gets interesting because they have the connections to the words that you wouldn't think of. And then that kind of puts it in their brain.
Yeah, because you did it was one word, and it was like, gosh, I can't remember. It wasn't unique, but it was one that was like a where, and a student who I had in the back, he said something, and I was like, I would have never thought he would have known that. And he does. And he was able to use really big vocabulary to even support the vocabulary he was learning.
Yes.
Which shows that people talk to him.
Yes.
And that he is talking and engaging, even though academically he may not be able to show it all the time, like on a piece of paper or a computer.
And that goes back to building those relationships too, because in my room I want them all to feel successful. Even I tell them, if you aren't a quote unquote good reader, you can still participate and be good. We just always have to be getting better. So in my class, I'm very big about whole group reading together, and then also on their level in guided reading, because I feel like they should all have access to the text if we're talking about it together.
Yeah.
Whereas them reading on their level, that comes into play and is important too, but I think they're both important pieces.
So for me, when I was watching, I would have picked the student engagement piece because it was early in the morning. So, but after talking to you and seeing the full picture of where you were at in the lesson, it made sense that only a few maybe were verbally sharing. So taking that piece of vocabulary and more engagement, could there be a possibility of us putting it together and like having them do like in groups at their table? Because I noticed they were talking to people who were helping, like, here, let me type that for you, let me pull that picture up, where they submit that together and it's almost displayed like in Pear Deck.
Yeah, sure.
That way other people could have gotten the ideas.
Yes.
You know, because that one kid's going to raise his hand and he's going to say, but then so-and-so over here, he really pulled a cool picture, but we didn't get to see it.
Yes.
Everybody else didn't get to see it.
Yes.
So the engagement of them with each other and with you.
Yes.
So I think that would be really cool.
Yes.
I don't know if that's possible with Pear Deck, but that is something that I think could be for you to combine what you're already doing and putting it all together.
Yes.
But I don't know how Pear Deck works either.
Yes.
But I know that was something that I thought in combining your vocab boxes. And that, I'm like, that would be so cool for other kids to learn from other kids.
Yeah.
If they can learn from each other, then they really know it.
Exactly. Yes.
So I would love to, whenever you're on the next one, to be able to come see either the Wordly Wise to see how you do that, or if you get a chance to, add that into the Pear Deck where they're sharing with each other, I would love, or have the viewing options to see each other's. Maybe they're working on the same one. That might be easier than to put it in something you already made for Pear Deck.
They, on Google Slides, they're able to work together, so I can put them in groups.
Like a group could be a color, because I'm color coordinated. Like you're the yellow table, you're only messing with this slide.
Yes.
And then, okay, let's go to the pulling up the red one on it for everyone to see. That would be very cool. So I look forward to seeing that engagement piece, and you focusing on vocabulary is not familiar territory for me, but I can imagine how important it is, because if they don't know what they're reading, then they can't answer questions about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I appreciate you letting me watch you, and you're amazing, dude. Like, I
Thanks.
really think that you are amazing at what you do, and you can tell that your kids are learning from you no matter where you're at.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for letting me do that.
Absolutely.